Hi.
Hey!
Welcome back. Or at least maybe I should welcome myself back.
We're both here. That's what matters.
Yes. We took a week off. You know, it happens sometimes. Is what it is. I actually, it's kind of my fault. I gave Precious a little late notification that I had a ear, nose, and throat thing going on. So I did not have the COVID, luckily enough. But so yeah, we are all good now. We're healthy. We're ready to roll. So for anyone who is unfamiliar with this broadcast, this is Sell Like a CPCU, brought to you by the Agents and Brokers Interest Group. We are here usually every week at 3 p.m. on Wednesdays, and I am Matt, and this is Precious. Precious, how was your week off?
It was good. It was very productive. So I'm super excited to share with everyone who's aware that I recently went into this independent agency, principal area, that we have officially crossed our $100,000 written premium threshold.
Woo!
It's huge. So
Yes.
Thank you. It has been a heck of a ride. We're still grinding it out. By we, I'm also super excited that my sister, my fellow insurance nerd, has come into the business full time as well. So we are in here and we are getting it done. So yes, it was a very productive week.
You went from a solopreneur to a dynamic duo now. This is
Dynamic
fantastic.
duo, yes. So it's amazing because she's kind of the front face. Her superpower is definitely the marketing. So she's
Yes.
out shaking all the hands, kissing the babies, as they say. So she catches them and she throws them in, and I process them, and we get it bound. So we're making it happen.
Yeah, it's a very important to also not get that dynamic reversed. You don't want to shake the babies and kiss the hands. It's like,
The tender press charges, yeah, we don't.
Yeah, no, it doesn't end very well. So let's give you some a leg up on the competition and talk about how you and your partner in crime can sell more. And we're going to be talking about generational education, insurance sales, and just kind of communication differences amongst the different generations. So we have an extremely special guest. He's like our super fan who's here every single week. And so if we didn't give him the venue to talk, I think he might disappear and not listen to us anymore. So we are joined by the illustrious in very dynamic red, just kind of red all around, Tony Canas. And I got the memo somehow. I don't know. How's it going, Tony?
Going fantastic.
Awesome.
He's glowing even.
Yes, he is. It looks like it's bright and sunny in Atlanta. Is it warm down there?
I haven't been outside in weeks. I don't
Yeah.
COVID era. It is starting to warm up. But the magic of the equipment, as long as it's not like super dark outside, this is how it always looks, because I have the camera set to overexpose. So it always looks like I have a like incredible day behind me.
So I'm already seeing the next episode that we have Tony back for is going to be a technical tutorial on how to do, vlogging and set the whole thing up and everything like that. I definitely need some help. I need a halo around me or something, and I need to like fix this like Logitech camera I'm working with, and kind of up that
As long
that
as you
game
don't
a little
get
bit.
stuck in cat mode, I think we're good.
I leave that to attorneys.
The problem that I've caused for myself. We move a lot, and whenever we move, it's my girlfriend wanting a luxury apartment and me wanting the cheapest possible rent. And so this one has floor to ceiling, east facing windows in Atlanta, Georgia. I get tons of light, right?
Yep.
Now I'm addicted to this. So now, like, even if we move, I've cost myself significantly higher rent or mortgage than
Good
otherwise.
life. Yeah.
That sounds like rich people's problems, Tony. I'm just saying. No, I feel you. Like, when you get used to something, I mean, it's like you're either stuck or you have to pay up for it usually to go somewhere else. So, all right, cool. So let's talk about how do I even start this off? Why are boomers such curmudgeons? That's what I want to know.
Now, I start my session on millennials, which is really a session on boomers and millennials, where Gen X gets ignored as usual, right? Because that's just how it works. That question got asked so much that I address it up front anymore. I make it a joke at the beginning. Hey, Gen Xers, as always, you'll be ignored. So I start that session by saying, hey,
Rick's ears are burning. He heard me talking.
By saying, boomers, you can't retire yet because there is so much knowledge about insurance you have that hasn't yet been carried down to the next generation. So you can't retire yet, and I mean that, right? I really do mean that. We have lots of boomers that run our industry, and their knowledge has not. We have not done a good job of rolling it forward. But why are they curmudgeons? The boomers were raised that the only thing that matters is work, basically. Like you go to work, you work hard, you're thankful that you have an office job because that worked at the plant or in construction and ruined his knees or whatever. So compared to that, you are incredibly lucky. And you're okay with putting 12-hour days. You did it for years, and that's what you were raised to do. Like you won't know what to do with yourself after you retire, right? And so, from their perspective, looking at us crazy millennials, they're like, "What do you mean you need meaning at work? Like we pay you. That is the meaning.
That's the meaning. Yeah.
What do you mean you're no longer learning?
Go buy the meaning. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did the check bounce? Like if it didn't bounce, like things are working the way they're supposed to, right? So from their perspective, it's like we think, why are they such curmudgeons? Right. And from their perspective, it's like, why are you such spoiled brats, right? And and the thing is, we're both right.
Yeah, there's two sides to every, or three sides to every story, right? So like I'm pretty sure that meets in the middle. So all right, so all in jest, you're right. Like the boomers are the brain trust, or at least the institutional knowledge that we still need to, at the very least before they retire, we need to find a way of kind of like cataloging it and kind of capturing it. Some of what we do here is that very thing, right?
Exactly. We publish books for them. And by the way, while like 75% of episodes in my podcast have been InsurTech interviews, the reason for that is because people who are actively working at a carrier can't seem to get permission to come.
Right.
Once they retire, send them my way. I'd love to have them to talk about their career and to preserve that knowledge. Yes.
Yeah, most definitely. I've actually had really good relationships with older people, specifically in the sales world. I mean, it might just be kind of a small subset that I've had experience with, but I mean, I had a mentor who, I stand on his shoulders right now. I would not be here without him taking me under his wing and teaching me, how to schmooze someone, how to close, how to, deepen or build a relationship or kick a relationship off. So I've had some good interactions. What's your experience been, Precious? I mean, the older folks that you've kind of worked alongside alongside or directly reported to? What's that looked like?
Well, it's funny because, this conversation obviously is twofold. We're talking about, the industry as a whole, and then we're going to get into, the clientele, the expectations generationally in terms of service and sales and, what they want, right?
Yep.
And so, when you're talking about even the expectations of what a job is and what you're supposed to get out of it, my father's a retired Air Force veteran, so he served 20 something years in the same job, like his whole life, right?
Yep.
My mother's the same way. She came out of the hospitality industry, and that's where she stayed her entire life. And so I'm a Gen Xer, right? And I remember as I went through different career transitions, industry transitions, as I was trying to figure out my lane, being looked at like, you got another job again? Like, you changed again? It's like, are you okay? What's the matter? Are you running from something? Are you, why can't you just commit, right? And so I think about my, mentor early in my career, who was a captive agent, worked for a specific company, and, we have about a 10-year difference between us. And same thing, when I left that carrier, it was like, why would you? Because there's this culture of you're supposed to stick and stay, and I have friends even, in my generation, that are celebrating 15, 20, 25-year anniversaries at the same place, and sometimes I look at that and I'm a little envious. I'm like, man, if I found somewhere that I could have plugged in and just really felt like I was, to Tony's point, so I'm like on the cusp, right? So I'm like a super late 70s baby, so I'm not a millennial, but I got millennial-ish ways, right?
You're the youngest Xer.
Yes, so I'm at the tail end. And I wanted to grow. That was really the big motivating piece of what drove me to be open to new opportunities, to be open to work for like an insurtech when no one knew what insurtech meant, and things like that, because I wanted to figure out ways to plug in. So there was a little bit of a fork in the road in terms of what my mentors were trying to instill in me as far as what it would take to succeed in this business versus the path that I chose to take, because I just didn't look at it that same way. I'm like, I'm not going to hang around for the watch, It's a beautiful watch, and I get it. You only get it when you hit your 20-year anniversary, but I'm just not here for it.
And I think as a generation, we've been acutely aware that committing to a particular company does not mean them committing to us, right? So
It's
like,
true.
And
it's a two-way road.
Like exactly, maybe the company does commit, and then they get bought out. And like there are people out there that committed their entire careers to navigators or to Fireman's Fund, right? Or to the old Chubb before they got acquired by Ace. And whenever those acquisitions happen, some people drop out, right? State Farm is a great example where there's been no acquisition, radical change. 4,200 people who thought they were lifers at State Farm fell off. Right, so, and same thing has happened at Nationwide. Same thing has happened at Allstate. I think for like from our perspective, I'm willing to commit, but I need to make sure my parachute is always in good shape. And unfortunately, in my first, I love Bruce. So good
Bruce
to have
is
you
awesome.
here.
This is our first Bruce Hicks comment, I believe.
Yes, it is.
I had to put him on because I want him to come back.
He's absolutely fantastic.
We tried to get him on for the How to CPCU Insights episode, and we got to find a way to mix Bruce in because he's just a fantastic person.
How I like to say that Mike Kosolmi is the heart, the beating heart of the society. Yeah, Bruce is number 2 on my book. Yeah. So you're only behind Mike when it comes to effect on so many of us. So thank you.
What 1A, 1B?
There you go.
And we won't tell you which one's A and which one's B. Like no. So Bruce comes up with an extremely good point here. He said that the job expectations of boomers and older generations, it was, consistency. It was, the other thing is that they saw the greatest generation live through the Depression, right? Where there was no guarantee of anything. So for them, consistent employment and consistent compensation over an entire career was prized because they had just gone through a period as children where they had nothing, right? Like, or a large percentage of the population had nothing. So,
And to be fair, the
yep.
employers of that time also had full-blown pensions, right? So there was
Yes.
a reward for hanging around.
That we have not yet seen the effect of. What I mean by that is retention wise, and I speak to so many carriers, and so as it is today, there's only like 25 active companies that offer you a pension if you join today. Something like 20 of those are insurance companies, right? So pensions still exist somewhat in our industry. On the carrier side, they don't exist outside our industry really, and what most companies don't understand is that a pension program is a great long-term retention device. A 401k is not, because it's designed to be portable, right? I think of my UA at Liberty had been there for like 30 years. Becky is absolutely fantastic. She's the reason I was successful there. When I put in my 2-week notice, I literally told my boss, if I were you, I'd just go tell Becky, hey, Becky, you're an underwriter now. If you want a UA, we'll hire one for you. But I know that you're particular; you might want to do it yourself too. Many times I said you'd be a fantastic underwriter, right? And she's like, I've applied, and I'm like, why don't you go elsewhere? Right? Wait until I'm out of here, but why don't you go elsewhere? And her answer was, I'll never make up what I would lose on the pension, right? Because she's been there for 30 years, right? But that's not the case with a 401k. And we have not seen the effect of that yet, because we have a lot of people grandfathered in with pensions.
Which, if you play that out too, that's also why the younger Gen Xers, not the older Gen Xers, the younger Gen Xers and the millennials are a little bit more inclined and also able to. I mean, when you have boomer parents or older parents, that can provide you with some level of protection or safety net. You're willing to go to the insurtech to try and get a piece of the equity because you're not going to get a pension somewhere else, right? So you might as well take less of a salary or something like that for a startup, and that's your lottery ticket, right? And if they go public or they get bought up or something like that, you're willing to be that Microsoft secretary who made $10 million on their stock options. I think that. Go ahead, Precious.
It's almost reverse. I can say that, again, when I worked for, a large carrier, the focus from recruiting to HR was always talking about the overall compensation package, right? Come on here, and we've got, the professional development, the tuition reimbursement. We have like all of these bells and whistles and all the fringe benefits, right? And so the salaries were modest. I'll be honest with you, the salaries were typically modest, but it was because your comp package had all these other things that you could avail yourself of, right? And so when I left kind of the creature comforts of, big corporate and a large carrier and went to go work for my first, insurtech startup, I realized more salary because I didn't have, I still had, the basics, right? Major, medical, dental, whatever. But I didn't have some of the other, we didn't have an ERG. We didn't have, a big pot of money for tuition reimbursement and things like that. But my mentality at the time was, if I stay, my retirement is going to be a percentage of my, however they average it, your highest earnings while you're on board. Yeah. Well, I've been grossly underpaid for the bulk of my career. Then my retirement is just going to be a subset of this money that I barely, lived off of during the time I worked here. So I rolled the dice, right? I'm like, I'm willing to go somewhere, and I now have to be disciplined enough to put that money away myself, knowing that I'm going to forego like an employer match or something like that, because that is the attraction, 401k, they have their discretionary, profit shares and, things like that you get. But what's really funny, and then again, I do want to get to the sales aspect of this, the little things, right? The little things of being part of like large corporate, stability. This time of year, the spring, this is the industry's time to do their merit raises and their bonuses, right? So people are getting their bonus checks, and it normally lined up around the same time that tax refunds may have come out. And so like this year, it's like the trifecta. They've got like stimulus money, they've got refund money, and they've got bonus money. And now, intellectually, I know that on paper, what I make today is more than, the sum of that, right? That's at least what my tax return tells me. But I'm like, I miss like the Select-A gift that I used to get at the end of the year. Granted, it was only like the value of it was like $30, but I'm like, I hate that I'm not getting that anymore. My husband's like, really?
You just made me realize that I got none of the three. I mean, I get paid
Welcome to the
really well at
club.
Jacobson, but like my commissions pay quarterly. They don't coincide with this season. I made too much for the stimulus. I have no kids, and because of insurance nerds, you usually get no tax return. Right, because that's not W-2 income, so and it kills some of my tax return.
Well, that means you're in a good spot. Let's be clear. That's a privilege to not get.
I'm in a very good spot. But
not to be a wet blanket, but wait until you file your first K-1 there, Precious, and then you got to pay out of pocket or prepay during the year.
Yeah, I've been paying. I've been paying the IRS for a while now.
They're well paid because of you and I, and I'm sure Tony's paycheck goes. A good portion of it goes to them.
No kids, not a homeowner.
Yeah.
I'm well paid W-2 and no deductions.
I had a friend, the acronym he used to use was SINK, single income, no kids.
Oh, man.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
But again, priorities, and I think the same things that, the attraction to the stable, this is just how it's done. This is part of being a responsible adult, right? Is you stick and you stay, and your word is your bond, and you commit, and, that sort of thing. Now, you take the generational difference and then you add on top of that a pandemic, and people are just doing business differently. And it's going to be really hard to try to go back to the status quo, even after things are done, because we've now proven that it's possible to, operate in this model. And so today's consumer, if you're just waiting and if you're making them call you between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday, you're going to miss sales, because that's just not, first of all, that's not the schedule they work. And so if they want to bind at 2 in the morning, you need to figure out a way to let that happen.
Yeah.
Even before the pandemic. And with that, we get to like the meat of what you guys want to talk about. Even before the pandemic, the expectation of Gen Z and Gen Y, of millennial and Gen Z buyers, is immediate quote, the ability to immediately bind it. If I do have some assets, if I'm a homeowner, I do want advice, but I want it on my own terms. I want it at the time I want it, and I want it through right.
Bruce says the acronym for us, double income, 4 kids, is stupid. STUPID.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Thank you, Bruce. So I want the service when I want it, right? If I want to talk to an agent, okay. So I'm going home to Costa Rica to visit my mom because she's off for Holy Week. I'll be working from there next week, and Costa Rica is very expensive. Anytime I go home, I end up loaded with stuff, computers and stuff for like everybody orders stuff, and I get to carry it home, right? So one of my cousins has 4 kids, and I'm carrying shoes for all of her kids. Well, I accidentally, because I entered the order, and it was a lot of information. I'm ADD, so I end up ordering 1 pair too many, right? And I realized it, and it's not Amazon or Zappos. It's like whatever like small shoe shop she likes. So I can't edit the order from their website. Right, so I can only cancel it. I don't want to do it again. So and they only have customer service from 8 to 8, and this is Sunday night. So I email the customer service email with the order number and let them know, please, eliminate this 1 shoe. Right, I grabbed 2 of this when I should have grabbed just 1. Okay, they never answer. I do overnight shipping. The shoes start arriving, and basically I realized today that not only did they never answer my email, but they completely eliminated both of the shoes of that type. So now I'm 1 shoe short.
No.
And not enough time for the shipping. Right? I can't stand that. Right? I'm used to Amazon, Google, Apple level of service. Yep. That is what I expect from my insurance also. Not only when I'm buying it, but also when I need service. And I know this is not easy for any independent agency. right? And if you have a traditional independent agency, right, Precious has the advantage is building one today. She can build it with the newest tool.
Digital.
Exactly, digital first, or at least equal. If you have an existing agency, you're at a significant disadvantage, and there are agencies of a particular size, right? If you're truly a mom and pop shop, I don't believe there's a path forward for you when it comes to technology. You're not big enough to be able to get the right technology.
Well, yes and no. So, Nick, wow, why am I blanking on his last name? IAOA, out in Arizona. Wow, why the heck am I having a senior moment here? So anyway, he's actually a senior member and equity holder at a company by the name of Better Agency, which is one of these software providers that provides basically agency automation software. And so there are these modular solutions that are coming out now that are kind of bridging that gap, right? So to your point, Tony, yes, like you want that same level of service and accuracy when you're dealing with your broker or your insurance company. The problem that we're running into is, just cobbling those things together and getting them to work in a seamless way. So I think some people kind of over-engineer the solution, and then I think others kind of look at it and they're like, you know what, things are working well for me. I just don't even want to breach that issue or whatever. Or maybe they'll dabble, they'll stick their toe in the water and they're like, it's cold though. No, I'm not going, that kind of thing. So there's a middle ground. I think there's a middle ground. The key is, like you said, with kind of like those smaller mom and pops, you need someone who's a visionary. Typically, it's like the younger child in the family, right? It's not typical sometimes, but it's not typically like the matriarch or the patriarch in the family that ends up having that vision. So, you can also modularly move your business over. So for instance, say you write a lot of home and auto, and you have an older population of clientele that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they aged with your agency. They're probably not going to be your first adopters when you roll out the new, self-service portal on the website, or when you, sign up the VA agency or the virtual assistant that you're using to take off-hours calls. They don't want to talk to them. They want to talk to you, right? So you kind of have to live with your foot in both worlds. And kind of the question I was going to ask you before was, Gen X really seems like the translators. They seem like they have the ability to kind of talk both languages and be the go-between, right? Like the negotiator. Am I off base on that, or do you think that that's actually something that they can fit into?
In fact, that's the other thing that I say about the only other thing I say about Gen X in my session is, which is funny because nowadays most of the people watching it are Gen Xers, you guys will never have the numbers, but you have the experience that millennials don't have, and you're about to inherit the positions of executive power. So you get to be the translator, you get to be the bridge, and you have to speak both languages, and you have to negotiate with both sides, and you have to actually execute to get us to where we need to be. 100%. Now, luckily for Gen Xers, it's a very profitable place to be if you do it right, and there's not that many of you, right? So the fight over you guys is already just vicious.
One thing I'll definitely say when it comes to, like you said, kind of those expectations is that Gen X, depending on how long we've been in the agent broker space, I remember certain lines of business that we still had to fill out paper apps in triplicate, right? It had the carbon copy. This one went to home office. This one stayed with you. This one went to the customer, so I'm old enough where I remember that. I remember the green screen of the DOS systems that we had to know all the function keys to get through, underwriting, right? So we were there before the technology advanced, and all of a sudden, the user experience was, prioritized and that sort of thing. So we still, like you said, we speak. I jokingly say that when I was in college down in New Orleans, the university that I attended, I had a good friend of mine who went to Loyola in New Orleans, and I used to love visiting their campus because there was so much more. You could tell there was a lot more money there than there was at my campus. We still had the holes that you pulled off the side of the paper, the printers that were in. Matt's laughing,
I literally shared a not a picket, a chain link fence with Loyola. We would go over to Loyola. They had a nicer cafeteria. Same company did the catering, but they got paid better over at Loyola, so we would go to Loyola to eat lunch. So anyway, continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So if you come from the New Orleans college group, we all know where we are, rank and file from top to bottom.
Nothing to say about intelligence, though, because I went to school with a lot of stupid people. I'll tell you that much right now.
Tuition doesn't solve everything. But, to your point, being in that middle space, right? And so the advances now when it comes to facilitating the sale, there was the notion, especially, like you said, homeowners, for example, where we used to have to do on-site photos. In order to bind it, you had to take a picture from the front and from the back, because the underwriting department, they were savvy enough to know if you snagged that off of, Google Maps. Like, why is there snow in the yard? It's July,
in Louisiana. Yeah.
Like, you had to do that. It was understood that if you wanted to buy life insurance, that we would have to get wet signatures, that we'd have to do some sort of face-to-face, because part of the underwriting model relied on me as the agent to be able to look at you, right? Did you hobble in here? Do you have a cough that I should be concerned about? That sort of thing. And so, shout out to, again, not just in the PNC world, but across the platform, how there's been so much innovation now. So like, for example, on the life insurance side, I have a contract with a carrier where basically I just send a secured link. I send a link, the customer gets in there, they fill out their info. And interestingly enough, part of the hesitation back in the early days of life insurance sales is that someone had to tell you all of the business they don't want to discuss, right? So you're asking all the health questions, and this is somebody that has to divulge to you that, oh yeah, well, I had this condition, I'm still being treated for that condition. And it was embarrassing, right? And so it was the inconvenience of I have to come across town, sit in the office, talk about all my dirty laundry in order to buy a policy, whereas now a secured link, and I'm not even privy to their answers, right? And if they bind it, I get paid for it, right? And you're like, who would have thunk it? And so when you get back to this generational difference, the boomers are comfortable with doing business a certain way because that's the way they've always have. It's just understood. When you need to do a transaction to the bank, you have to make an appointment. If you need to talk to your agent, and in the commercial side, that was difficult because, Tony, you have customers that are like, once a year, I meet with my agent, I pick up a binder in an actual binder. That's why it's called a binder. Right? We're going to sit there. We're going to flip page by page and make sure all the different endorsements had all the different tabs. And then we're going to go play around and golf when we're done. And that was my annual touch point with my agent, right? And so some of those customers that need to be able to say, my agent is also on the school board and does this and this and this, that was part of the value proposition. Now, and again, back to the Gen Z, positioning, do they care about that kind of stuff anymore? I know they want you to be knowledgeable, but all the bells and whistles.
So Gen Z, and I'm less of an expert in Gen Z as millennials, but I am reading everything I can get my hands on and working on it. Gen Z, interestingly, they like, if you ask them how do you want to communicate, most of them say face to face. What do they mean by face-to-face? And this is research from before COVID. Face-to-face does not have to mean in person. Face-to-face simply means face-to-face, right? So they do want access to that, but they want access to that when they want it. Basically, the best research I've read that I really agree with on Gen Zers is for Gen Zers, like millennials were digital natives, but for Gen Zers, the world is physical. That's the portmanteau of physical and digital. Basically, every physical thing has a digital counterpart, and that's quite simply the expectation. I can go to class or I can watch it on Zoom, right? Like, so there's that expectation. So we were talking about millennials and how like we expect like a unified, being able to use whatever channel I want. Well, those channels, Gen Zs are the same, except those channels are even wider. Right now, we're talking mobile first because they might not even own like an actual laptop or desktop computer, right? They live on mobile. I'm not completely comfortable running my life on my iPad and my and my iPhone. Gen Zers, most of them are. So mobile first, right? We have this problem for job application. Right, they want to be able to apply from their mobile. Mobile first, and never ever require them to come in person. Now, if you want advice on your insurance, absolutely, let's have a Zoom call. Right, if you happen to be in the neighborhood, you're welcome to stop by. But it's up to you to choose which how and like even this like them filling out the application in some sort of mobile, like perfect mobile way, they're already bending to us. Really, they want to go, Alexa, I need insurance, right?
Yeah, one click. Yeah,
exactly. Blame Amazon and Google, and if it's more than one click, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And don't require that you actually have to print and sign something.
Oh my god, they don't have a printer. I have a printer because I'm a millennial and like it was work provided, and I sometimes I print things just because I like reading them that way, and other times because I need to mail stuff or whatever. My sister who is 22 doesn't have a printer. She's in school and she doesn't have a printer. Right, it's just not a thing. Like her entire life, she's been able to just upload homework.
Taking pictures of documents is not the same quality as scanning them. Okay, I can tell you how many times I have a signature page of like an application and it has like a shadow, and don't tell me that the iPhone has the scan option inside.
There are apps that have.
Hold on. I've had a lot of success with. Is it Lens? Lens is the Microsoft one that you can like put a PDF together. I've had a lot of success with that.
I have an app called Scan or Tiny Scanner that works fairly well, but yeah, it's not the same. But like to begin with, if I don't have a printer, the Scan app does me no good, right? Like that should be an e-sign. In fact, you're lucky that I'm willing to sign it because my sister who's 22 would be okay with an e-sign, but my little niece who's 8, by the time she has to sign a document, she's going to expect to do the fingerprint thing.
Yeah.
Or even that will seem outdated. She's going to expect to be able to just look into the iris reader, right?
Now, this is also an interesting kind of tangent or complementary discussion here. So Bruce basically said all generations are comfortable with doing business like essentially a certain way, right? And different generations have different preferences, which I think we're all on board with. I think the other thing to understand is that no generation is a monolith, right? So like millennials, most of them may prefer to do things digitally, but there will still be a certain component of them that maybe, I don't know, nostalgia or, they think, doing things with paper is the new punk rock or something. I don't know, right? But so that being said, that's actually an opportunity, though. So, for instance, a good portion of my clientele are public sector. They're not exactly technology-forward people, right? Even the newer people that are getting hired, they're finding out that like there's all these kind of legacy regulations that the decision that they have to make is either, all right, do I fight to change the regulations that something has to be a wet signature, or do I just continue doing my job with the wet signature and dealing with the headache of it? I think most will just continue doing the wet signature and not dealing with the headache. Some of them will take that extra step to try and, fix the ordinance or something that requires paperwork.
If you're a Farm Bureau agent in North Dakota, like even with the younger crowd, right? you're pretty.
Do they
safe.
even have the internet out there? I don't know. Like,
No, and there's good research. There's good research on which people tend to be. The generations are generalizations by definition,
Yep.
but there's good research on which groups of people tend to be more conservative than the rest of the generation. Farm kids, first generation immigrants. Those are the two big ones that I remember. But yeah, there's ways to predict based on your location, based on your book of business, how in danger are you of right away.
right.
Basically.
Yeah.
Now, I will also say it is very contingent, especially in the commercial space, on the verticals that you're going after. Certain types of businesses, for example, anyone who does like legal services or whatever, they're going to have the printer, right? They didn't like it. But they have to have it because it's necessary to carry out their business, right? It's really interesting because when I was watching your video, Tony, about talking about, again, engaging with, Gen Z from a sales perspective, there's not a whole lot of Gen Z in transportation simply because there's a requirement, first of all, of like years of experience, which rules them out from that. And then also it's not the barriers to entry, the money that it takes to get into that space, sometimes is cost prohibitive, right? And so we have certain areas and pockets in commercial that are exploding, right? I mean, everybody is a consultant of some sort right now. A lot of these digitally based businesses, that they can kind of get into that don't necessarily require like third-party licensure. It may not even require like a specific degree, so there's certain things that, if their business is a digital model, maybe they're selling online e-commerce or something like that, that you're going to encounter more people in that space versus like the public sector, which I would imagine is much more conservative. So, in these conservative spaces where people don't even know, like that's it's not necessarily a new business model. So some of that is going to be whatever the tolerance is, even in their industry. Like, what do their customers expect of them? When you were telling the story about the purchasing the shoes online, the first thing that came to mind is if I don't get a response from an email with customer service, I blow them up on Twitter. And
The main reason to have Twitter, absolutely.
Yes, I drag them on Twitter. I hashtag them because they guaranteed have some sort of person whose responsibility it is to follow that, right? It's like the equivalent of giving a less than stellar review on Yelp. They want that gone, right? So they'll call you back. They'll send you a link. So let's talk really quick. We were talking about the barriers to accommodating some of this from a tech perspective. What is your opinion, or what have you seen from the millennial and even Gen Z on like chatbots? They like them, they hate them.
And a quick plug, if you're not following or subscribed to Insurance Nerds on YouTube, definitely do it. Or follow Insurance Nerds online if you go to insurancenerds.com. Is it insnerds.com?
INS, good job. Well, nobody ever remembers. Yeah.
insnerds.com. Sign up for the email. There you go. The check should come to me in cash. All right, go ahead. Chatbots.
Awesome. So I have not read the research on it. We might not yet have the research on it. So I can't put numbers behind this one, although as Carly knows, I'm happy to make them up. My opinion is yes, I'd rather like the shoe thing. I would have much rather have a chatbot than email us or call us only within business hours, right? The chatbot would have at least had the chance of helping me. And in fact, awesome. Yeah. Hey, Terrence. In fact, for my particular query, I think that the chatbot would have probably been fine, right? They would have probably figured it out. If you force me to call you, don't have the on-hold music be you telling me to go to your website. If I'm calling you, it's because I've already gone to the website and I couldn't make it work, right? So that is the worst. Like music, or like press 1 for silence. Or I love the Delta version, which is, "Hi Tony, thank you for calling. We recognize you because of your phone number. Estimated wait right time is 12 minutes. Press 1 to wait, or 3 to get a call when it's your turn. You won't lose your right." I like that style. But with the chatbots, yes, I'm happy to give it a try with the chatbot. Now, please don't pretend it's a real person. right? It's fine. I'm okay chatting with the chatbot, but the moment it can't help me because its programming doesn't go far enough yet, make it easy to get a human, preferably on chat, right?
Yeah.
Rather don't yet make me call the 800 number, preferably on chat. If it absolutely, and let's say this is eventually, hopefully, either the chatbot or the online chat, somebody will be able to help me. But let's say that like your programming is not quite there yet. I'd rather have you tell me to give you my phone number and you'll call me, right? Then give me an 800 number and have to navigate a phone tree to get there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, but again, that's my personal opinion. I'm thinking of like myself, my girlfriend, like her family. They're all young, and that's kind of what they complain about when it comes to chatbots. But I have not seen research on acceptance of chatbots in the two younger generations. That's a very interesting question.
I would have to say that just without any statistical knowledge behind it, the with the one click kind of aspect of it, right? Like the chat bot should not be looked at as a de facto service person or something like that.
Agreed.
It should be looked at as a very quick and easy to navigate, like directory or something. There's some exceptions, right? Some people will go into that interaction with the chatbot expecting to interact with the chatbot a lot in order to catalog data or something like that and get an answer at the end. But things like what you were talking about with basic service requests, if they can't get their answer very quickly, okay, don't defer them to the 800 number. Like, don't defer them to some 404 error page on your website. It should be a VA, right, who is at least a person that is then going to make sure to hand off that message, or it should be the actual person that they're looking for, right? So, and that's very easy to engineer in the present day, whether it's RingCentral, Zoom, or any one of the other IP-based phone systems and things like that. Most of them can link up to either a chatbot or just the basic phone system itself to then ring your cell phone. And if you're not available, at least it's your voice on your cell phone saying, "Hi, it's Matt. I can't answer your phone right now, but your call, but please leave me a message. I'll get back to you as soon as possible." That is the best option. There used to be a trend where everyone would name their chatbot. It was always like, this is Patrice, and Patrice is going to help you. And like the boomers are like, "Hi, Patrice, how are you?" And like,
Oh, that's Patrice.
Patrice doesn't exist. Patrice is just a name, But I was always in favor of if it's going to be a bot, name it something bot, so people know it's a bot, so that they're not like, have you ever seen not Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer do stand up? You ever heard Bert Kreischer? He's known as the shirtless comedian. He's this big dude with a beer belly, and he does not wear a shirt when he does his stand-up comedy. And his wife and kids are like, "Yeah, you're totally a misogynist." And he was like, "Well, why do you say that?" And they were like, "Because the way you talk to Alexa," right? Like Alexa wouldn't do what he wanted it to do, and so he's like cussing out Alexa, and they're like, "You're totally misogynist because of the way you talk to Alexa."
But that's a really good point, because I know we've been focusing most of this conversation on what the Gen Z and the millennial preference is, right? Mm-hmm. And completely, just kind of disregarding the baby boomer preference as being like an outdated preference. But I can't tell you how many times I've worked at a company and people just kept hitting 0 or just saying representative, because they didn't want to go through the IVR. They didn't want to answer the questions. They didn't want to be pre-screened. They just wanted a flippin' human. And it didn't matter what kind of human. They just wanted to talk to somebody who actually, could hear and respond. In the agency environment where it makes it a little bit more complicated is that there are compliance issues. Some of the questions they have require a licensed individual to be able to address, So are you just calling to update your email address? You're calling to change coverages. That's going to depend. And so my frustration, my pet peeves are when I call a place and I give them the entire scenario for them to tell me at the conclusion of that they're going to transfer me, or I wasted my time.
You have to repeat the story.
Cut me off already. Tell me, you've reached You've reached, I'm not that person, but let me get you to that person. I'm just triaging, right? And let that be the expectation. I like, and, again, certain industries do it a little bit better, where at least you get, like, for example, if I send an email, if I get an auto reply, thank you for your email, someone will be in touch with you within the next 24 48 hours, where they kind of spell out what their service level objectives are, so that you kind of can, first of all, hold their feet to the fire, like, hey, it's been 25 hours. You told me I'd hear from someone by now. But making sure that we're leaving the door wide enough open to where we're not forcing people to do business in a way that they're not comfortable. I've had older policyholders tell me, I don't like doing business. Like I said, I don't want 800 numbers, faxes, and the anonymity. I want to know who I'm going to entrust with my sensitive data.
So how about carrier service centers? Because like as much as I like marry your CSR if I call, I want service. I don't, right? Like ultimately, like especially if it's after hours, I just want, if I'm calling, it's because I could not figure out how to do it on the website. Believe me, it's painful to make the call. So I'm a fan of the idea of carrier service centers. What you guys are actual agents. What do you think?
I'm gonna take the first stab at that. There is a specific
Go ahead. Crap on the service centers, Precious. First one out of the gate. Go ahead. I'll be over here.
There's a particular carrier that I do an immense amount of business with, and it frustrates me to no end how limited the capabilities online are. Like, if I have an additional insured and their name is more than like 10 characters, I have to call it in. And so I've actually clocked how many man hours I have spent on hold with some of them, to the point where, it used to be kind of the joke at the agency I was at, where on Slack, you would just basically announce, hey, I'm holding for such and such. Does anyone else need anything? So that everyone can kind of get in online, because at any given time during an 8-hour day, somebody was on hold with this carrier, bananas, right? And when you get a hold of them, and then of course, they explain to you that, oh, well, there's a backlog. And it's just like, I don't care how the sausage is made, damn it. But if I'm going to sell it, I need you guys to help me with this a little bit.
And I'm the one looking back to my clients.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm the one, I'm the accountable face. I'm the one they bought from, right? And so I do like, certain carriers, again, who've made tremendous advances in, the chat features, because if I just have is this within appetite question? Boom. I don't want to hold for someone specific. It's not about an actual submission. I just want to know, are you in or are you out, right? Those things. What I do like, and I'll end with that, are the chat features that then give you a transcript of it, right? So some of them will actually send you an email. So you have that. So you can attach that to a file, so that later on when it comes up, who in the hell told you that? Pardon the French. You can say, here's the date, time, versus me trying to do a snippet from the computer screen, a screenshot to stick in my file, So let that carry forward. If I have to be, like you said, transferred via chat, let that same chat interaction be, carried over to the new one instead of starting from scratch. So that's my 2 cents. So it wasn't a huge, thumbs down, because we need them, right? Some of them are just better at it than others.
I think call centers are fantastic for baseline things. So call centers are fantastic. I think the key becomes how you're communicating to your client base what the call center is actually going to be handling. Okay, so if they're handling address changes, email, contact-based stuff, even really baseline, maybe certificate requests, evidence of coverage, things like that, that's fine. Okay, as soon as it becomes consultative, then there's a concern there, because you don't want there to be any kind of consultation that's happening outside of, like you were saying, Precious, you want to know what that back and forth looks like, right? And so that's something that you think about. And again, depending on the shop, I don't chase small commercial. So when small commercial ends up in my book of business, I have to just be okay with sending it to the carrier call center, because I really don't want to, not that I don't want to, but it's just a time value of money conversation. Doing an evidence certificate for, a client that makes me $50 is taking me away from that next, $1,000 commission client that I could be. And it's not to say that any client is better than another. It's just, I'm looking to scale, or I'm looking to kind of like be more efficient about it. What's also kind of interesting in there is, again, talking about like how technology is morphing in our system. And again, full disclosure, we don't get compensation from anyone. We don't advocate for anyone. We don't think one carrier is better than another or anything like that. We're not here to kind of give that give and take. So ultimately choose, the provider that you want. But Neon, for instance, that's, Sydney Rowe and Seth Zaremba are working on. Neon is basically a data management or data analytics package that gets built on top of the Varuna agency management system in the Salesforce world. And they actually track service times and things like that. Now, you can track it internally, but I think there's also, I forget if it's current or if it's going to be an add-on, but there will also be an opportunity to kind of track service requests that happen maybe directly adjacent to your agency. And they'll actually look at, what carriers are taking 3 weeks to get you an additional insured endorsement, right? So that when you sit down with the carrier for your quarterly or your annual meeting, and they're like, so, why didn't you send us these, 25 submissions, or why didn't you bind it with us? And you're like, well, because it takes you 4.5 centuries in order to get me an additional insured endorsement. You actually have some data behind it. It's not just like, oh, it feels like it's slow, right? So there's other tools that are out there like that. So
they're on closed beta, right, for Neon?
No, I think it's actually pretty much open. I went through. I'm not big enough yet because it's not their requirement. It's actually Varuna's. Varuna requires that you pay for 10 seats.
I think for 2021 they are invite only. They're only taking like 40 brokers. 2021, and I think they'll go fully live next year. But it does sound awesome.
I must know a guy because I got the whole song and dance, and they.
Of course, you have a Neon guy. Because, By
the way, Hanley was supposed to be on the show like 3 weeks ago, but he couldn't make his schedule work out. So we're gonna figure it out. We'll have Ryan on. But
everybody that's in the agency side should watch the interview that Sid did on the Biatomic podcast of the new, quote unquote new. He's like 2 or 3 years in there. CEO of is it Epic? What's the company that owns the big agency management system?
You're talking about not Vertifor, the other one.
The other one, yeah.
Applied.
Applied.
Yeah.
So she had the CEO of Applied, which I thought was really interesting because they're a competitor, looks to me, right? And basically, he's fairly new CEO. He comes from the tech side, not from the insurance side. And he was super honest about their basically, hey, we apologize that Applied is a very closed system. It's not that we're trying to hold you hostage and sell you expensive tools on top of it. It's that's the way it was architected back in the day. We are in the process of re-architecting in an open way, so that eventually, when we're done with that, you will have better access to your data, and you'll be able to plug either third-party tools or our own tools, up to you which one, in a painless way, right? Yeah. So I think it's really cool that I never expected that from Applied.
But it doesn't surprise me. Like I forget what I was talking. There was a podcast where I was talking about exit points. Every serial entrepreneur thinks about exit point, right? Whenever you start, like when Precious started her shop, I'm pretty sure she was thinking, all right, am I passing this down to my son? Am I, doing this so I can pass it off to a family member or something like that, or do I eventually sell? Like, what does that look like, right? Myself included. It doesn't surprise me that Applied or any of the other Vertifor or Salesforce and Varuna would be talking to these various companies because, to your point, Tony, like whatever they were designed for in the previous, decade or 2 decades is going to have to change. And I think you're already seeing that going down the path. So what was it? Not Broker Buddha, but what was the other one that was up to Indigo? I think Indigo was up against is the competitor to Broker Buddha in terms of like the dynamic accord forms and things like that. They were purchased, and they're going to be essentially integrated as a module to be tacked on to the agency management systems, which isn't going to be like a vertically integrated solution, because they also want to sell that service as a standalone with an API on the back end that can go to some of these other competing agency management systems. So I think they've identified that, they have this big Goliath kind of enterprise solution, but that doesn't apply to me. That doesn't apply to Precious starting up and things like that. But they can collect those modular add-on pieces where like Precious and my agencies are, they're using Indigo or Broker Buddha or one of these other things. And then all of a sudden it comes time where now we do have 10 or 12 or 14 licenses. And we're like, maybe we should go to Vertifor. And they're like, well, yeah, we already own 3 of the ancillary things that you're using right now. You might as well just jump on board and everything kind of fits together. I think that's really the thought process going forward.
I love the metaphor of it. How did you put it? It's no longer what it was built to do is no longer what it's doing. And what I mean by I love the metaphor is the exact same metaphor applies to every agency that's been there for 30, 40, 50, 80 years. Quite simply, what it needs to do today and tomorrow. It's not what it was built to do 30 years ago, right? So you need to re-engineer it.
How that book was built is not going to be how it continues to grow.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And Bruce is echoing those points. He says, we supply products to both Applied and Vertifor. Product design is a huge challenge, and legacy product creation still affects us. Yeah, I mean, like, you're talking about, what? Do you design something to tack on to an old technology, or do you take the new technology and let that dictate how you're going to either evolve or transition the legacy system? I think is something most carriers are also still dealing with to this very day. And that's going to be the question is, so what I like about the ecosystem, and we're beyond just kind of generational purchasing behaviors, but this kind of goes into it. What I like about the ecosystem is the answer is like, why not both, right? Like, you'll have certain insurtechs and systems that will essentially revolutionize the old enterprise systems that are there, or at least get them a little bit more current. And then you'll have some of these standalone solutions that are evolving from the ground up that will then end up kind of displacing some of these older legacy systems eventually, and probably not put those companies out of business. They'll end up being acquisitions where it'll be like, okay, well, we've bought them, we'll run them in parallel for a little while, and then we'll essentially, let the older system pass away, and we're going to convert everything over to the new. So, it's an interesting space, but I love that conversation about kind of living with a foot in both worlds, because if you want to write like mid and large commercial, like some millennials run those companies, but it's mostly boomers right now. Like, Absolutely. There's not a ton of like millennials that are running mid and large size companies, and some of those people still like a call on the phone and an ink signature and a face-to-face meeting. It just is what it is. But so we're going in an hour. I want to be respectful of your time. Before we get into like anything else, besides the YouTube channel and the website, is there any way else that folks can get in touch with you or follow what you're doing?
Add me on LinkedIn. I mean, insnerds.com is the hub for everything. But for me personally, add me on LinkedIn. If you want to chat, usually for career advice, chatwithtony.com. Although when I get calls from agents and brokers, I usually I start with I've never worked in an agency, so I'm happy to chat, but take what I tell you with a big grain of salt.
Yeah. And then he refers them to myself and Precious, and they usually get pretty decent jobs afterward. I gotta say, we got a good track record of mentoring sales or would-be sales professionals that Tony sends to us. So
yes.
But yeah, I have the website up, and by the way, Tony practices what he preaches. So when he says like he's helping, Bill's gonna kill me, but when he says he helps older generations like pass on their knowledge, I mean Bill Wilson writing books and having Insurance Nerds be the platform that it gets published out of and distributed from, I think is a fantastic example of being able to pass along that that institutional or that kind of legacy knowledge that's out there. So
Bill has such a fantastic sense of humor that he calls them his little tombstones.
Yeah. That's funny.
Jeez.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think that sounds like him too. Like if you told me that was a joke, I'd be like, wow, that sounds like a Bill Wilson joke. Without knowing his name. So no, that's good. Any parting questions, comments, Precious, that kind of were at the tip of your brain there?
No, I'm just pleased. Well, no, look, I was going to say something, but I remember that Tony's been accusing me of having these very Southern-isms, as he's called them.
I've been congratulating you for the Precious-isms.
Finish that sentence. What I was going to say.
Bless his heart.
But in all fairness, I will definitely say, because I don't think I've ever, again, thanked you publicly for just everything that you do for so many of us in the industry, in the CPCU society, Tony. You've never hesitated to make an introduction, open a door, and, just you can't, find a more genuine person when it comes to, that sort of stuff. So we definitely appreciate having you on. Hopefully it's not a one and done. You'll join us again. We have so much that we could dig into. But no, always a pleasure to connect with you, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It was really funny seeing very Northeast Matt saying bless his heart. That has to have hurt him. That's not a New Yorker thing.
No, see, down south, that's what they say. Up here, I couldn't say that on this channel because then I would offend some people. There'd be some bleeps involved afterward. For anyone who needs a translation, if someone in the South says, bless her heart or bless your heart, they're not giving you a compliment. I'm just telling you right now. Or at least it's a backhanded compliment for what it's worth. But so thank you, Tony. I appreciate it. Reminder to everyone, like, comment, subscribe, share. Sickness, hopefully no more sickness. We will be here every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. And that's it. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Everyone.